evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Democracy and the Rule of Law, a show where we'll delve deep into the critical issues of law, politics, and governance. In today's episode, we'll be looking at the issue that made headline throughout the week, which is the issue concerning the renaming of bus stops by the Lagos State local government authority in some parts of Lagos State. Of course, that act have generated a lot of public interest, whereby so many people have expressed reservation concerning the powers of the local government chairman to rename local government bus stops in Lagos. So we'll look at that today, and also we'll look at the core for
true federalism.
For true federalism in Nigeria. And these are the two topics we'll be looking at in today's episode of Democracy and the Rule of Law. We'll go on a very short break, and then we'll return to introduce our guests who are already seated in the studio this evening. Stay tuned, we'll be back shortly. If you are just joining us, you're on to your favorite program, Democracy and the Rule of Law. With me on the show today is Barrister Obiora. Barrister Obiora, welcome into the show this evening.
Thank you, and a very good evening to our esteemed viewers.
Alright, without wasting much of our time, we'll delve into the nitty-gritty of today's episode. We'll look at the issue concerning the renaming of bus stop across local governments in Lagos State. Of course, that have generated a lot of review by the public, especially the one concerning the renaming of Charlie Boy bus stop to Olamide Badu's bus stop. So many people have had cause to express concern, and some people have even alluded that it lacks constitutional sanction for local government. So what do you have to say about that?
Yes, I agree that in Nigeria today, and that includes Lagos State, whatever is done or purportedly done by any person or group of persons, anyone in authority must be authorized by law. Because if anybody takes any action, any step, administrative or otherwise, that is not authorized by law, the question is always be who warrant you, who authorized you. We know that going by the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria, which is the prevalent law for today, the functions of the local government include street naming and naming of bus stops and other functions, just like collection of tenement rates, then cemeteries, bus stops, motor parks, and development at the grassroots level. But then in Lagos State, we are aware that what is there in the Constitution today for Lagos State is 20 local governments as contained in the Constitution, which is part of the 774 local governments in Nigeria. We are also aware that Lagos State government attempted to create local governments, but did not meet the minimum constitutional requirements, which led to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the country, coming to the conclusion that those things created by the Lagos State government then were inadequate, no full local governments, and do not possess the powers and authorities of local governments. And then in reaction, the Lagos State government named those created things local government, local council development area, LCDA. What it means today is that Lagos State has 20 local governments that are functioning, carrying out the constitutional duties given by the Constitution. At the same time, there are also the LCDAs that are mimicking or purporting to carry out the functions and the constitutional duties of the local government. For example, in Lagos State recently, the Tiosa local government, which is a full-fledged local government, recognized by the Constitution, carried out street renaming in its area. And of course, nobody raised eyebrow except those that may have reasons to challenge the street renaming. Because if a street is renamed, there must be reason for the renaming and all that. But then we observed also that recently the Bariga Local Council Development Area went ahead to rename some bus stops, some streets, and particularly that of Charlie Boy bus stop, popularly named after Charles Oputa, was renamed the Olamide bus stop after Olamide Adedeji, popularly known as Bado. The question is this: can the Bariga Local Council Development Area carry out that constitutional duty? And the answer is capital no. And why is that so? Because as far as the country is concerned, as far as Nigeria as a nation is concerned, Lagos State has only 20 local government areas. And Bariga has no local government in the constitution. They have LCDAs, and because the Bariga Local Council Development Area is not a local government, it cannot under the constitution.
Yeah, but they have a chairman too, just like a local government has.
Yes, the fact that the Bariga Local Council Development Area has a chairman does not make it a local government.
They seem to function in pari passu with the local government.
And that is where the problem lies. Because there is no authority, there is no power that enables these LCDs to function as local governments.
Some parts. What of the one that has been given to them by the House of Assembly of Lagos State?
The House of Assembly of Lagos State does not have the power to create local government. That is the issue. The procedure for creation of local government is clearly established in the Constitution. And because they were not able to meet up, and that is the reason why the Supreme Court said those 37 LCDAs cannot be known, recognized, and be confirmed as local governments.
Yeah, even though
if they had been confirmed, of course, the Constitution would have been made to reflect these LCDAs, but they are not local government. The fact that they have chairman does not translate to local government in Lagos State. And of course, what we are seeing in other ways is that what they have been doing that are meant to be done by local governments, stricto sensu, are unconstitutional acts, illegal acts that are not backed up by any law. Because it is only the local governments that are duly constituted, duly elected local government councils that can perform the functions and duties that the Constitution has assigned to local governments. And where such actions are done by authorities that are not stricto sensu local governments, then they have carried out illegal activities.
Yeah, but some will argue that the local government, for administrative purposes, could delegate some of their powers to other people, just like LCDA to function in their state.
Now, the issue of delegation does not come now. The issue of delegation is when there is an authority given to a valid personnel, a valid officer. The officer in his capacity to function then gives the power to somebody subordinate to him or her to function. That is the delegation of authority. But that's not what happens here. Because the person who proposed to be acting as a LCDA chairman is acting in his capacity as a chairman. And the Constitution never even said delegation of the duties of the chamber or council, local government council, to a body that is carrying on also as a local government council.
So why do you think that this unconstitutional act, as you have termed it, has not been challenged, even by the ones that the Constitution has provided, the 20 local governments that have been provided by the Constitution? Why do you think that nobody has challenged the action of these LCDAs who acts in guise of local government?
Yes, the thing has not been challenged.
They have allocation. They've been allocated and they function as local government.
As far as the official records is concerned, the allocations that come to Lagos State are for 20 local government areas. Then, in the course of the thing coming, that is expected to take care of these other illegal local governments because they are not created in conformity with the clear prescriptions of the Constitution.
Yeah, but we are
And yes,
federalism. But before we come to that, since we are discussing the issue of local government already,
yes,
and the creation of this administrative unit who propose to act as local government,
yes.
So some will argue that creation of local government should be in the domain of the states, if we are to practice with the federalism.
Now, you see, unfortunately for those who are making that hollow and baseless arguments, the Constitution created the states, the federal government, and the local government. It's not the state that created the local government, it's the Constitution. If you look at Section 7 of the National Constitution, it says that there must be, democratically elected local government council. It is the local governments are created by the Constitution, not by the state. If you now say that it should be left to the state to create and the state to manage it, we now have an imbalance in the political structure, because what we know is that there is a three-tier system of government in Nigeria, and that three-tier are all created by the Constitution, and the Constitution that created the three-tier has given each tier its duties and responsibilities under the Constitution. Now, if you are saying that, okay, let us, for purposes of mental recreation or digression, let the states create those things without reference to what the Constitution has said, will create a situation whereby the states, in the bid to get more allocations from the center, will create so many local governments that will just be, ghost of real local government, so to say. Presently, we know that Nigeria has 36 states. Among the 36 states, 14 are still finding it difficult to, stay afloat and are still getting loans from outside the shores of this country, in spite of the allocations coming from the federal government. Now, if you now say, okay, let the local governments be created by the states, it will create an anomaly. And so it is better that the Constitution, as having created the procedure for the three-tier system to come into existence, let's abide by that. And what Nigeria needs today is not really proliferation of local governments or states, as it were, but to ensure that we comply with the extant laws, the Constitution, and other enabling acts to make this nation function properly. Now, where a state like in Lagos State attempted to create a local government and did not work out, ordinarily those council would have been dissolved ordinarily. But keeping them there and then still giving them the powers as if they are full-fledged local government areas is unconstitutional. They're acting illegally. They're acting outside the purview of the Constitution. They do not have the powers to do what they're doing. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, it was a local government carried out a renaming of streets, major streets, and because a full-fledged local government, nobody can question the constitutional acts done. Ikeja local government, there are so many other local governments, but then the ones that are not real local governments in the eye of the law, because as far as the law is concerned, when the law is looking at Lagos State, the law is seeing only 20 local governments, nothing more, nothing less.
So are you saying that the recent election that were done is to fill in the gap, to fill in the chairmanship and councillorship in this local governments by the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission, is illegal and unconstitutional?
Of course. If we are saying
election were conducted to fill in those positions,
if we are saying that
the electoral umpire in Lagos State, and that means it is recognized by the electorate, just like INEC recognizes. So are you saying it's illegal?
Now, if the state that attempted the creation and did not actually create one and kept them at LCDAs, is now conducting elections in the LCDAs. That's LCDAs, that local council development areas, in addition to the main true authentic local government areas. The ones in the local government areas recognized by law are authentic elections, legal, proper, valid, constitutional, and unimpeachable. But the ones done in those areas that are termed local council development areas, that are not local government areas, and they are done as if they are local governments, those things are unconstitutional. But you see, one thing in Nigeria is that if nobody goes to challenge certain things, they may remain so, even though illegal, even though unconstitutional. But we had cause to say in this platform that the LCDs are not local government councils, and they cannot pretend to be one, and they do not have the powers to be carrying out the functions of local government areas. There are only 704 local government areas in this country, and in Lagos State only 20, as I've said earlier. And any other group of persons or body, whether called LCDA, that propose to carry out the functions of the local government areas are just carrying out illegal and unconstitutional acts. The fact that elections were, purportedly conducted in the 20 local government areas and the LCDs.
Well, they didn't say 20, they said 50 something. So in fact, there's no distinction now between the 20 you are alluding to and the 50 something. The
20 I'm mentioning are the ones that are encapsulated in the Constitution of Nigeria.
Yeah, but in Lagos, you not recognize we have 50 something LCDAs. There's no demarcation.
No, in Lagos State you have 20 local government areas and 37 LCDAs. That's always that distinction. The ones that are genuine, authentic constitutional councils are the 20. The names of those ones are there in the Constitution. The other ones, you can never see them in the Constitution. So anybody that is saying 57 LCDs, that is a misnomer, a wrong nomenclature. Because the Constitution has recognized and has maintained validly 27 local government areas for Lagos State.
All right. So that us, I'm sure that the listeners and the viewers will be very interested in clarifying this issue. So are you saying now that the tenement rates and levies that issued by these LCDAs can be challenged in court by the residents of that area because it's issued by unconstitutional?
The issue of a tenement rate is another matter, which means
levies and all of those.
Yes. Those things they have, those actions taken by LCDAs as which are meant to be done by local government areas are illegal, they're unconstitutional, and they can be validly challenged in a court of competent jurisdiction. Now, the issue of tenement rate is another thing. Under the Constitution, it's the local government areas that are to collect tenement rates, radio rates, television, and other rates, and so on. But discovered that in Lagos State, sometime in the past, there was an unholy marriage wherein the state government, match with the real local governments to join in collecting the tenement rates and called it land use charge. So instead of the local government areas collecting the tenement rates, it was left to be collected on behalf of the local governments by the state in the name of land use charge. And when they commenced it, a lot of things, unimaginable happened. There was a particular building that belonged to an old woman, a woman that was close to 80 years, a building, a tenement building, and the amount the woman was asked to pay by way of land use charge was more than the rent the building could attract for a whole year. And the woman said, where was she going to get this kind of money to pay this kind of amount? If the government want to take over the building, then they take over the building. So now, what we're saying is that tenement rate is another issue that needs to be looked into. So long as the Constitution has stated who is authorized by law to collect tenement rate, why do you now subsume it under land use charge and then give it to a body that is not authorized by law to collect it? That's another issue. But then to your question as to whether the actions taken are properly taken by the LCDAs in the course of the years are legal or are constitutional, so long as those acts are meant to be carried out by properly created local government areas. Those actions taken by the LCDAs are illegal, they are null and void, they are no effect, because the LCDAs are not stricto sensu local government areas. They are creations of the state that are inchoate, to use the exact words of the Supreme Court. They are inchoate, not yet fully formed, not yet complete, an embryo. And what I expect the Lagos state government to do is to take steps to get the LCDAs properly created as local government areas. And until that is done, in compliance with the clear provisions of the Constitution, they remain inchoate. They remain stillborn. And because they are stillborn, they cannot purport to act as if they are local government areas, because they are not one.
So in essence, residents, they can challenge the action of this.
Of course, they can validly challenge the actions.
In a court of law.
Yes, in a court of law.
I'm sure that people will be excited to learn about that. This is where we'll go on a very short break, and when we return, we'll look at this topic and move into the second topic for today. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Just joining us here on your favorite program, Democracy on the Rule of Law. All right. So beyond the unconstitutionality of this local government,
yes,
some people have also complained, about the arbitrary renaming of these bus stops.
Yes.
Some people have found cause to question it because they felt that while the consultations were not carried out, before the streets or bus stops were renamed, that some of these people that this bus stop were named after, was as a result of their contributions in those particular areas. In fact, the bus stop that was renamed to Badu said it wasn't even officially named. It was as a result of the influence, of the person in that area, that made the residents of that area to come together and name that particular bus stop in honor and memory. So some people have said that there has to be consultation to carry the people along in some of these things and let it reflect the wishes of the people.
Yes.
You share that opinion?
Yes. Well, we are going to look at two things. One, the renamings done by properly created constitutional local government areas, like Etiosa local government area renamed some streets, major streets in Etiosa. Now, those people in that area have a right to challenge if constitutions were not done. Because streets are named after individuals for particular purposes. Maybe because of their contribution to the area or for achievements, for which, made them to stand out. And in such cases, if attempts are made to rename the street, there will be need for consultations within the people in that area to know whether they agree with the proposed renaming or to retain the name they've known over time. And in that context, the ones by the properly created local government areas can be challenged by someone who feels that the procedure that was adopted in the renaming was not in conformity with the tenets and principles of democracy. Because democracy is the rule of the people, by the people, for the people. And the majority must have their way, while the minority must have their say. If the majority in the area concerned prefers the former name to be retained, so be it, because it is the game of numbers. And that's why after every election, the winner is whosoever have garnered the largest number of votes and upon fulfillment of other conditions. So it is not within the whims and caprices of the local government properly created to just wake up and they rename streets or bus stops as the case may be. There's need for consultation because they are representatives of the people. They must carry their people along. They must let their people know what is going on. That is the essence of democracy. But those that have been purportedly done by inchoate bodies, I'm talking of the LCDs now, those ones that are automatically null and void. And you know that they revered Lord Denning, the master of the rules, had cause to say that you can't place something on nothing and expect it to remain. That it will automatically collapse. So if an act is null and void, it is void. And that is to say that so long as the LCDs purport to create or rename streets or bus stops, which they do not have powers under the Constitution to do, what they've done is null and void. And then let us look at that of the Charlie Boy bus stop. The bus stop, I was made to understand, was initially Second Pedro bus stop. But because Charlie Boy, a singer, an artist, a human rights activist and crusader, had made contributions to not just that area, but has made his impact felt in the nation. The bus stop became known as Charlie Boy bus stop out of popular demand, and it was so named. And Charlie Boy is still there. He's still carrying out what he believes are the things that need to be done to get Nigeria as a nation to function properly. If the need arises, he goes out there to protest, either with other persons or by himself. He has always been calling for justice, true justice, not strangled justice, not justice in feathers. He has crusaded over the years and is still doing so today. Now, for the Bariga Local Council Development Area to wake up to say they renamed the Charlie Boy bus stop to Lamide bus stop, that council does not have the powers to do so. Now, if we now say, okay, let the proper authority, the real local government that can carry out that function, do so, there is still the need for consultations to ensure that the actions that are being taken are representatives of the aspirations, the opinions, the wishes of the masses in that area. Because one thing that democracy forbids is capricious, autocratic, despotic actions. Actions that smacks of authoritarianism. Actions that smack of dictatorship. Or a person, wielding powers to the extent that the person can be said that power has corrupted him. Because he said that power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, in the context of what has taken place in Lagos in recent times, in terms of renaming and all that, the ones by the true local governments can be challenged if wider consultations has not been done. But then those that were probably done by inquits, those ones can never stand.